Hi, I'm Neil from PowerSyncPro, and today I'd like to do a live demo of offline domain join using PowerSyncPro Migration Agent. This is where your users will keep the same user profile and be migrated from one Active Directory to a new Active Directory seamlessly when they're working from home. They do not have connectivity to their domain controllers, and they're not on their VPN. So using the offline domain join feature is a really important feature when you want to migrate a large estate from one Active Directory to another. I have a few machines on screen. I've got my PowerSyncPro server here. I have my workstation, my user workstation, and I also have a DC, which I'll show you in a moment. But let's run through the workstation configuration first. First of all, I have OneDrive, and that is connected to the migration target tenant. So the circumstance here is that you might have already done a tenant-to-tenant migration. So your users are now consuming services in the target tenant. So they're using Word, Excel, OneDrive, Teams, all of those good things, but they're all connected to the target tenant. And now you wish to move the workstation device join state from AD joined in the source to AD joined in the target. I have Teams here, which is connected to Tom Hanks at MIG target. I also have Word connected to Tom Hanks at MIG target. The same with Excel. Let's have a look at Outlook. That is also Tom Hanks at MIG target. And let's have a look at Edge. That has a default homepage as well as Tom Hanks at MIG target signed in. I have a file on desktop, and let's go and have a look at the device configuration. So I'm on migsource.net, and just to prove the domain that this machine is connected to, it's migsource.net. So I'm on the wrong AD domain. Back here on my DC, I have my MIG target DC, and you'll notice in the computers OU, there are no machines there. So this machine has not been connected to the target. Now, the first thing that we need to do is install PowerSyncPro Migration Agent. You can use any software deployment mechanism. And I'm just going to show a command line that you can use to install the PowerSyncPro Migration Agent. So here, I'm just surfacing the GUI just so you can see it used, but I am providing a pre-shared key and the URL to my on-premises PowerSyncPro server, the secure URL. So this is a pre-shared key, which is dedicated for your server, which you generate. And as I said, that URL, PowerSyncPro Migration Server. So PowerSyncPro has now installed, but you'll notice no migrations have started. This is because I have not put this machine into scope. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come to my PowerSyncPro server, and I'm going to go to my batches in my configuration. So I've already got everything set up here, and I've got this offline domain join batch. And I'm going to go to here, and I'll go into a little bit more information a little bit later on whilst this machine is migrating, but I just want to get it underway. So first of all, I'm going to add this particular machine into the batch. So that means it's now in scope for migration once I save. Now, back on the machine, the migration hasn't started yet. Now, Migration Agent will communicate with the server every hour to find out if it's now in scope for any runbooks. But obviously, as part of this demo, I've just shown you, I've just installed it, and that hour is nowhere near yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to the taskbar app here, and I'm just going to click Check Runbooks just to expedite that hour. Now I'm doing an offline domain join here, so I'm being asked for some credentials. This is because once the machine has migrated, we do not have line of sight to the domain controller. We do not have connectivity to it. So therefore, what I need to do, I need to put in Tom's credentials into here, which will be saved on the machine securely. You'll notice that now that I've done that, I get an additional user profile here. That is just a dummy profile. just because we've had to authenticate with that target domain controller. In actual fact, I have a trust between my source AD and my target AD, my MIG source and my MIG target. You'll notice the migration box has now popped up. This is the migration available. This is not enforcing the migration on me, and I'll show you how we'll configure this a little bit later on. It's actually giving me another 10 days before it's going to force this migration on me. But do you know what? I'm not yet ready for this migration, so I'm just going to click snooze. And then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to complete some work on my Word, complete some work on Excel, and the same with Teams. And I'm just going to finish off some browser stuff. But you'll notice I've customized the taskbar here just to demonstrate that this will be the same user profile once this process completes. I'm now ready for the migration. So I'm going to, as a user, I'm going to come back to my PowerSyncPro Migration Agent taskbar and click Migrate Now. I'm still within that time frame where the enforcement of the migration is not yet there. So I'm just going to click Start. PowerSyncPro Migration Agent is now configuring the workstation. It will need a few restarts because you're disjoining from AD and joining to another one. So we need to let that process happen. It will now restart within 1 minute, but for the purposes of demo and our time on this, I will just restart it straight away. Whilst that machine is rebooting, I'm going to come back, I'm going to come to the server, and I'm going to run you through the configuration that we had. And this will pop up every now and then whilst the machine is restarting. So if I come to my runbooks, the runbooks are a set of instructions that are going to be performed on the device. And I have two here, the cached credentials and the actual migration. First one I'm going to show you is the cached credentials. I'm not going to dwell on this one because it doesn't have a huge amount of configuration. Within the startup, you say we're not actually running it. But the main thing I'm doing on this runbook is within the device state, and I've got cached user credentials. And that's the prompt that you saw. So we're asking for the credentials in advance. So that's really all that's on this particular runbook, which I want to run in advance to collect the user credentials. Now coming on to the next runbook is the main runbook. We have the name, source directory, which is the MIG source AD, target directory, the target AD. I'm not running on servers for this particular runbook, and I have that prerequisite runbook of the cached credentials. Let's look at the Startup tab. Show progress. That means the users are going to see the progress of the migration. They're going to get the prompts that you saw on screen. Otherwise, it could be silent. We are running the startup, so I'm not going to show that. The migration in progress image, hopefully you'll be able to see that. Here it is here. So that's a backdrop on the user's workstation to say, essentially, the migration is in progress. Please wait. Do not log on to this workstation while this is happening. You can customize that to be anything you like, so your corporate colors or any other messaging that you desire. The fallback account is an administrative account that we put onto the machine with the password that you specify, and we also delete that after a number of days. That's just in case there are any problems with the disjoin and the rejoin. You have an account which you can use. Command line package. That is a set of command lines or PowerShell that you might want to run on the machine before the migration starts. It runs as the system context. User experience. These are the prompts that you saw on the screen on the user's workstation. They are all completely customizable. The QR code here is a website of your choice where the users can go to on their device. We've got cached credentials, completely customizable. Migration available, migration starting, migration in progress, migration complete, and service unavailable. The great news about the user experience is that it's multilingual. You can add as many cultures, as many languages as you like to this interface here. So what will happen is that it will detect what language is on the user's workstation, and if you have configured that within the runbook, it will present those language prompts to the users. Now, device state. This is where you decide where you would like to remove the computer from and where you would like to connect it to. So here I'm removing from all directories. I could have just removed from Active Directory or Entra ID. Domain join, I'm joining to Active Directory, but I could also do a cloud only or Entra joined migration as well. That would have used a bulk enrollment token to join to the target tenant, but in this case, we're demonstrating offline domain join. I could have specified a random computer name, and I can put sort of some different ways of configuring that computer name as well. And I'm doing an offline domain join. So the PowerSyncPro server is orchestrating that domain join. So I have not specified a container or an OU to put the computer account in. And here I did not need to specify a domain join username and password, which would have been orchestrated from the device itself. I'm also setting hybrid control validation, which is to expedite the hybrid join process. Let's have a look at our device. Fantastic. So this is now, the backdrop has now been reverted. So this is good to migrate to log on to, and I've got MIG target here. But the one thing that I do want to prove to you is to shut down my DC. Let's have a look at the computers. There's the computer there, fantastic. So if I shut down this DC, it's the only one for that domain in this environment. So now this is shut down. The computer is certainly not having those credentials. I'm now logging on with the cached credentials, and this will take a little longer than a normal logon, purely because it doesn't have visibility of the domain controller. So it needs to verify or attempt to verify access to the domain controller, and when that doesn't succeed, it will log on itself with the cached credentials. But while that's doing that, I'll take you through the rest of the configuration. So we've gone through device state, and now we're looking at permission updates. For permission updates, I'm just going to show you where it gets the majority of translations that need to happen. A source user has a source security identifier, and a target user also has a security identifier in all of the environments that we're talking about, Active Directory and Entra as well. So what the permission updates do is it goes through the file system, and it goes through the profiles, and it goes through all of these areas on screen, replacing the source security identifier with the target security identifier. So we go through the Windows profiles, the file system, the registry, the user rights, file shares, printers, services, scheduled tasks, SQL IS, and local groups as well. Just briefly, down here is the translation table, and I can go to that, and I can click on the target environment and just go search, and you'll see I have the source security identifier and the target security identifier here. So that is what it's building, and that's what would have been downloaded on the machine, and the migration agent will be using that translation table. Coming back to my runbook. So we've talked about the permission updates, and now we're going on to app reconfiguring. We're not reconfiguring any apps here. We will need to log on or confirm the logon on some of the apps. But here, this is typically used in a tenant-to-tenant scenario where you are going from one one tenant to another tenant, and you have a completely different tenant the machine needs to connect to. So therefore, you would normally reconfigure Outlook, some Office apps, Edge, OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, and AIP. The completion, we get to do some proxy settings, as well as some other online packages. Here, I've set some settings for my corporate settings. This is a command line or a PowerShell. I can also uninstall the agent as well if I no longer wish to perform any other actions on the device. Within batches, this is where I create the logical groupings of computers that I wish to migrate. So I have my offline domain join, which you got a glimpse of earlier. Here, I've loaded in my two runbooks, the cached credentials to collect the credentials, and then the main runbook there as well. You have available from, this is when the users can choose to migrate from, and this is enforced after, so therefore they will have no choice but to migrate from those dates. You also get different time zone selections here. UTC, everybody migrates at the same time internationally, whereas you can go local and choose to migrate at a certain time local to that machine. Here down in computers, this is where you choose what computers are going to be in scope. It's currently set as no computers, but when you add computers into here, they will become in scope and you can import a list if you so wish. Alternatively, you can go all computers, and that means everybody in your estate would adhere to this batch if you've deployed it to those machines. Let's go and have a look at the agent logs. So, fantastic. If I just expand these. Down here, it says the migration is completed. And here, it says toast notification displayed. So we can see in the background here that this is the toast notification to say that the migration is now complete. Coming back to the logs, this provides all of the telemetry on the device to show you what is going on, and you can react to this and you can make changes to your migration if you see any problems in your environment. So everything here is all of the logging that you need to understand of what's going on the device. Here I also have my dashboard. This is the donuts to say how many machines are in the process. I've only got the one machine here and it's now completed. Typically, you would see different colored donuts to say how far through the migration different machines are. Let's go and have a look at our machine. So I have the same desktop and I have the same taskbar. I'm just going to connect to OneDrive. And let's put in my password. And it's just going to ask the usual questions. And I'm just going to let that quickly log in. And whilst it's doing that, let's have a look at the device join state. So here we have system, about, and we're connected to MIG target now. Fantastic. To MIG target. Let's go and have a look at the profiles on the screen. Now, within the user profiles, we had 2 user profiles before. We're still using this one, and this is the dummy one here. So no more user profiles. And now let's go and have a look at Teams. Sign in. It's just confirming the sign in here. That should be pretty quick. And Microsoft Edge, it's still got the default browser, and that's still connected to the MIG target. Let's have a look at Excel. And that is still connected to the migration target. There we go there. Fantastic. Teams is now logged in and we're all set. Thank you for your time.